Hello there, everyone. Men, women, children of all ages. This is the Jack of all trades with the foul mouth, Commodore Urban, and this is May 7th, 2019. If you guys are ship fanatics and historians, you guys know what today is. This is the 104th anniversary of the sinking of the Cunard steamship, Royal Mail steamer, Lusitania. Yes, it's been 104 years ago on this date that one of the two fastest and most famous ships of their day, one being the Lusitania, of course, and the other one being her English-built sister, Mauretania, were the prides of the Cunard Line fleet. But during World War I, the Mauretania was actually being a troop transport at the time of the Lusitania's sad demise, which off the coast of Ireland at around a little after 1 or so in the afternoon, a single torpedo was fired from the German submarine U-20 commanded by Commander Walter Schwieger, and had a direct hit right below the bridge. And there was a massive explosion. About 10-15 seconds later, another massive explosion rocks the ship, and within 15 minutes, the mighty Lusitania is sitting on the bottom of the Irish Sea, and you have survivors, bodies, and wreckage floating everywhere. So, why? Why did this disaster happen in the first place? Well, I'll explain why a little bit, and then I'll explain a few other things. I can't believe it, 104 years ago that the great ship sank. And what has happened to the wreck? Well, the wreck, the once magnificent Lusitania is almost unrecognizable as the blue ribbon champion she once was. She literally is just a pile of scrap metal on the bottom of the Irish Sea. She is that disfigured. The only part of her that is not disfigured to the point of absolute unrecognizability is the front end of the ship. It still has the characteristics of a ship, but everything from where the front of the superstructure would have been all the way to the back, it's literally just a twisted pile of shit. And because sitting on her side over the years, the upper decks have fell down and her hull's collapsed in on itself, half of its original width. So when it did that, all these upper decks slid down into a pile, and yeah, it's a tangled mess. But why did this disaster happen? Well, it's called the Bloody Germans, or the Huns as they were known as. They were believing, and it was partially true, that passenger ships were delivering war material to Great Britain. So they basically said any ship flying the British flag or any flag of our allies are going to be destroyed in the waters patrolled by the Germans, meaning around the British Islands. And they carried out this threat very swiftly, and they did. And sinking the Lusitania was a very lucky thing, because Captain Schwieger only had one torpedo left. He had one. He had one torpedo left. That was it. And he fired that last torpedo off at the Lusitania, and he thought maybe, he was going to get a hit on her, give her a bloody nose, as was recounted in the logbook. But he gave more than just a bloody nose. He hit right below the bridge, which is right where coal bunkers and stuff were. But that was also an area where there was a boiler room. And a lot of people have been speculating for years about the secondary explosion. You know, they said it's the lighting off of contraband. The only thing contraband that could have been on that ship was rifle shells made by Remington. And there's literally thousands of them, you know, that were originally wood crates, but now these wood crates have rotted away, revealing the bullets. And they're about yay big. But there wasn't enough of them or anything that could really set off a massive explosion, so it wasn't the supposed contraband. And there was a theory created by Bob Ballard when he, you know, explored the wreck, that he believed it was coal dust. Well, if you've seen my video from a few years ago of what I believe sank the Lusitania, I don't believe it was a coal dust explosion, because you gotta think, the inside of the ship is hotter than hell. Because you gotta think those boiler rooms are hotter than hell. And the outside where the water's at is cold. So you're gonna have this barrier between cold and hot. So then you're gonna have condensation. So I think in all this condensed moisture that was in the coal bunkers would have dampened the dust down and stuff enough to where if it was kicked up, there'd be no violent effects. What I think happened when that torpedo hit into the boiler room, it ruptured one of the main steam lines, which, you know, fed steam from, you know, all the boilers that went into the turbine room. I think it ruptured one of those pipes, made it weakened, and the steam pressure inside the pipe couldn't hold it, so the pipe exploded, and so it shot through the top of the ship. At the same time, it shot outward, probably the torpedo hole. It probably blew out the torpedo hole in the process, letting in more water and opening up seams along their hull, letting in more water. And with the ship driving itself forward the way it was, the ship listed over to starboard, and she plowed herself beneath the waves. That's what I think happened. It was just a blown steam line that was the secondary explosion. Because they said they seen a lot of steam and smoke coming, you know, from the upper decks, you know, shooting out of vents and stuff. And that sounds quite about like a steam explosion. I don't know. That's just what I think, though. It was a ruptured steam line that doomed the ship. If the torpedo would have hit further up in the bow, there probably wouldn't have been as much damage. There still would have been damage, but it wouldn't have been a severe damage that would have sank the ship. She could have got into Liverpool, you know, limped into Liverpool with a hole in her, and they probably would have put her in the Gladstone dry dock there in Liverpool and patched her up and stuff and got her back out to sea. But, you know, Captain Schwieger gave off such an incredibly lucky shot that he hit her right at the weakest point in one of the boiler rooms and stuff, you know, and that torpedo explosion, you know, disrupted the piping and stuff, weakened it, and the steam built inside of these pipes and stuff, the pressure, and just, it basically blew up. That's what I think. But, you know, the Germans carried out their deadly plans, and they sank a lot of ships, killing a lot of innocent lives, including American lives. Which, you know, a few years later, when we went into the war on the side of Great Britain, there was a lot of anti-German, you know, a lot of anti-German feelings because of the sinking of the Lusitania. We didn't automatically go into the war. It was like a couple of years later, like 1916, 1917, when Woodrow Wilson declared war on Germany. And after that, they sank several other ships, with American lives being lost in the process. But, you know, the story of the Lusitania is it's like the story of the Titanic, you know. It's one of those stories that it isn't just a story about a maritime tragedy. It's also a story about a turning point in the war. Because of that one act, you know, the Germans, they were on top of everything. They called this a victory as such, that they had made, you know, bronze medallions commemorating the sinking, which in turn the English made hundreds of thousands of, metal copies of these, supposed, medallions of congratulations to the event as anti-German propaganda, and it worked. And of course, if you guys know me, I have been working on some drawings for the 104th anniversary of the Lusitania. Here's one. There's one. There's another one. This is when the ship was sinking. And here's another one right here. I love that straight shot on view. That's great. These will be up on DeviantArt, so you guys will look at them. Maybe do one or two more, and that might be it. But the story of the Lusitania is definitely one we need to remember, because it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. That really changed the tide, I think, in the Great War. And also, the ship needs to be remembered too, not just because of the fact of what happened to her. She needs to be remembered for what she was. At her time, she was a technological marvel and a triumph to British shipbuilding and, naval architecture. She was one of the very first large passenger liners to have steam turbines. She wasn't the first passenger liner to have steam turbines, but she was the largest to have steam turbines, her and her sister Mauritania. So, yeah, I may do another video talking about the Lusitania, technically, about the Lusitania in technical terms. I might, but then again, I don't know. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little overview of the Lusitania disaster on the 104th anniversary of the disaster, and God bless the victims and stuff of the tragedy and stuff, and let them all rest in peace, and let the great ship rest in peace too. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below for me and I'll get to you. If you're new to my channel and you like what I'm doing, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell. When I do new videos, you'll be be known about it. And until next time, this is Cunard Urban saying have smooth seas and clear skies. Happy sailing with you, and God bless you. You take care now. Have a good day.